27th regular meeting of Belleville City Council. For everyone watching on the city streaming service or our YouTube channel or on the Your TV broadcast, I would point out that our agenda and all items and reports are on the city website at www.belleville.ca under the agenda, minutes, and live meeting video on the left side of the screen. If you then click on the June 27th on the calendar, it will bring you to the agenda for today's meeting. There is a hyperlink located in the agenda in the event you wish to look at the individual reports, so you can follow along with us. I will now call the meeting to order and state that we are all present, and I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services and City Clerk, Mr. Matt McDonald, to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, item 3 on the agenda is the disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Does anyone have anything they wish to disclose? Seeing none. There are no public meetings today, so I'll ask for a motion to confirm the regular council meeting minutes of June 13th, 2022, and the regular in-camera meeting of June 13th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Feeney, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. And we'll now move to deputations. And before we move to item 6.1, I'd like to call Manager of Transit Operations Paul Buck to come forward to the podium. We have a presentation we're making today to some of the city's transit operators. Mr. Buck, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon to be able to introduce two of our transit operators here in the city of Belleville that have gone above and beyond, and I'd just like the opportunity to tell you what they did and why we feel that they need to be recognized. We'll start with transit operator Mike Pascalag. Mike was operating his vehicle on Bridge Street East when he witnessed a woman fall off her bicycle and suffered a pretty significant injury. Mike secured his bus, contacted dispatch to arrange for EMS to be dispatched, and then he stayed with the bicycle rider, provided care and comfort until EMS could arrive, secured the bike at the end of the event, and made sure that it made it back home safe and sound. Excellent opportunity for Mike to show how great of an operator he is for the city. The second operator that's here with me this evening is Chris Lattiser. Chris was operating his bus on Bridge Street West. Was coming past the courthouse and witnessed a small fire burning underneath one of the trees in front of the courthouse. Secured his vehicle, contacted 911 to arrange for the fire service to arrive, and then put out the fire with the fire extinguisher he had, waited for the fire services to get there. They took over the scene, and then he carried on. Two of our operators were in the right place at the right time and just did the excellent thing that they could do.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Buck. And we'll have some more information about another operator in the coming days and weeks. But I'd like to invite Mike and Chris to come forward to receive some certificates on behalf of the city. We're indeed fortunate to have so many wonderful women and men who work for the city of Belleville and care about our community. Moving on to item 6.1, deputations. I'd like to ask the Director of Emergency Services and our Fire Chief, Monique Bolaire, to come forward to introduce someone who's taking a new position. Chief, do you want to come forward and... Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it is with great pleasure that I stand before Mayor and Council. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that tomorrow it'll be a year ago that I stood here myself and took my own oath. But I'm very pleased to announce the newest member of Belleville Fire and Emergency Services, Deputy Dan Smith, who will be taking his oath today with us.
Are you prepared to take the oath?
Yes.
Good. Go ahead.
I, Dan Smith, as the Deputy Fire Chief in the municipality of the Corporation of the City of Belleville, do solemnly swear that I will carry out the duties of the office of the Deputy Fire Chief to the best of my ability with respect for the mission, vision, and core values of Belleville Fire and Emergency Services, while honoring the three foundational pillars of the city that appear on the coat of arms, those being loyalty, tradition, and progress. I will at all times protect, safeguard, and preserve life and property against fire and other perils and maintain proficiency in the fire service. I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as the Deputy Fire Chief according to the ethics and rules of the fire service, striving to promote the three lines of defense for fire and life safety, being education, compliance, and response. And I freely make this solemn promise and declaration, conscientiously believing it to be true, and accept these obligations as my responsibility, recognizing the duties of my office as a symbol of public faith and trust.
Great. We're going to sign the oath here. Congratulations to our new Deputy Chief. We're back to full complement again. It's excellent news. We'll now move to item 6.2 on the agenda, and I'll invite Lori Huber to come forward from KPMG, who is the city's auditors, representing the city's auditors, who will make a deputation to council. Good afternoon, Ms. Huber. How are you?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon to speak to you with respect to the results of our financial statement audit for fiscal 2021. I will give you a very high-level overview of the details that were certainly covered off through the course of the many conversations with those charged with governance, along with management, through the course of the year, through our audit plan, and certainly through our audit findings. So we're here today. The financial statements are part of a later agenda item, but certainly from our perspective as your external auditor, our audit is substantially complete. Our independent auditor's report is our annual contribution to the financial statements. It is included in the package that you will see later on. It is in draft, subject to approval of council of the financial statements, but if you've had an opportunity to take a look at our report, it is a clean audit report. In our opinion, we believe the financial statements do present fairly in all material respects the financial activities of the corporation for the fiscal year ended December 31, 2021. You will see in our auditor's report there is an additional paragraph this year to reflect the fact that we are your first year audit from another firm to KPMG this year. So there is another matter included in the report this year. Certainly that's a one-year transitional item, and that will certainly go away in future years. So in terms of findings, this conversation can be quite short. As we worked through our audit this year, the audit went tremendously well. Normally in a transition year, there is a lot of incremental effort and a lot of effort on the part of management. Certainly pleased to be here today. I think certainly with the timelines that we had set out for ourselves early on as part of our audit plan, it really was a clean audit. The books and records were in terrific shape. No significant findings from a controls perspective, and really no significant findings to bring to your attention from our perspective. So with that, that's a very high-level summary. I'm happy to dive into details to the extent you have any questions, but perhaps that's a good place to pause, if you will, and welcome any questions from the group.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Councillor Thompson.
Just one, no question. I know it's supposed to be a question, but I'm going to compliment them. Being on the Finance Committee, and our chair may want to speak on it also, and the mayor. We received it very quickly and very thoroughly, and it was nice to be able to sit down at this time of year and look at a complete audit for the year previous. For other times, it's been maybe delayed for whatever reason, but compliments to the company for giving an audit as quick as it did. So, thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Councillor Thompson said, the timing of the audit is exceptional in terms of having it available by the end of June. I think that's probably a first for the corporation. And when you consider that we went through COVID, we went through a transition from one audit firm to another, and I know that the sort of level of cooperation and collaboration was second to none. So I thank you and your team as well as our finance team. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? I know we will discuss the statements themselves in 8.3 on the agenda, or 8A3 on the agenda, but you know, certainly it's the first time that I've seen the statements completed in the month of June. Sometimes we've had them as early as August, many times later on in the fall, and I think it's compliments to not just our city staff that prepared everything and had it ready, were able to answer all the questions that you needed, but also the Finance Committee went through it rigorously as well. So that is a huge achievement. The books are also in great shape. You know, that's one thing that, as I said, we'll speak in a bit. We are in very, very good financial shape in terms of managing the city's finances, and we want to thank you for your efforts and all of your help, and we look forward to continue to work with you next year.
Wonderful, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, colleagues, I'm looking for a resolution that the deputation by Laurie Huber, CPA, CA from KPMG, the city's auditors concerning the City of Belleville's 2021 financial statements be received and referred to reports item 8A3. Moved by Councillor Sandison, second by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? It's carried. And then the final deputation today, I'd like to invite Glenn Edwards to come forward. Glenn is with GHD and will be making a deputation to Council regarding the 2020 Comprehensive Citywide Asset Management Plan. Good afternoon, Mr. Edwards. If I can just get you to turn the red button on, you're good to, yes.
How's that? Thank you so much, everyone, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you today about obviously all the hard work that the city's put into developing the Comprehensive Asset Management Plan. And yeah, I guess we'd like to just share with you some of the highlights. So we're going to run through the state of local infrastructure. We're going to talk about the asset lifecycle strategy that the subject matter experts have put together. We're going to talk also through the funding strategy, so how we're going to pay for everything, and then I'll take questions at the end. We'll keep it fairly high level, but obviously I think you've all been briefed with a copy of the report itself, but if you have any questions, we'll go through those at the end. First thing I wanted to just talk through today was an understanding of why we're doing this activity. So basically it's driven by an Ontario regulation 588/17, which stipulates that municipalities have to produce one of these plans, and there's a series of regulations that have incremental requirements associated with this regulation. And as you can see, we're obviously coming up on the deadline here for July 2020. So this plan is set to cover all the core assets, but the group of subject matter experts have actually done a little bit better than that through the development of this plan. So that's it's really good to see. But core assets themselves are the major assets, so the bridges, the roads, the pipes, and so forth. So that's really what we focused on as part of this plan. But obviously, as you'll see, there's a number of other assets that have been included, which just means you're in a better place for the next iteration of that and next deadline of that regulation. So the ones in purple are the ones I'm going to focus on today, but the other two parts of the report itself are the levels of service, which were developed, and also some demand management assessment, so understanding what sorts of things may change in the future, which may impact the way that we deliver services through our assets. But what I'll do is I'll dive into obviously the state of local infrastructures first. So it's really trying to describe what assets we own, what are they worth, and what condition they're in. And as part of that, this is kind of the snapshot of the city's portfolio. So basically $2.3 billion worth of assets in the books. And on average, they're in great shape, very good, in fact, sorry, good shape, I should say. And as you can see there's quite a variety of assets that are in various conditions, but on the whole, good shape. So it's really, really pleasing to see. The other part of the assessment that I'd like to focus on is the risk assessment. So what we're looking at there is the way that all our various assets impact the delivery of services to our community. And so the subject matter experts from each of their respective departments have helped us understand which assets are the most critical to the delivery of the services to the community. And then we've used the combination of consequence and likelihood to assess how many or what quantity of assets in terms of their financial value live in the different risk categories that we've assigned there. And again, as you can see, this basically helps us prioritize and understand where we should be spending money in the future to help us prioritize where we have to make trade-offs, obviously, in terms of decision and where we should be investing. So really quickly, excellent to see no extreme risks in terms of our scoring, which is fantastic. There's obviously some in the high risk category, so about 300 million approximately. Similar amount in the moderate category, and then the vast majority of our assets living in that low and insignificant categories, which is again pleasing. What does that all mean? Basically, what we're trying to describe is what assets need to be acted upon through a various life cycle activity, and which ones are above our risk threshold. So obviously, you yourselves have control over where that threshold lives, but typically it sits in that high and extreme category, which is again pleasing to see that most of our assets are in that category below. Okay, the next part is going to be a little bit of just explaining what this means, because it's kind of a technical term in the business, and I want to make sure that we understand what we're talking about when I say life cycle activity. So what that essentially translates to is the cost of ownership of the asset through its life cycle. So everything from construction through to the cost of operation and maintenance that we put in, any rehabilitations we do along the way, and then of course the cost of replacing or returning that asset to its original condition when it reaches the end of its life. So that's really the basis through which we've evaluated what your infrastructure needs. So in terms of understanding how much money do we need to be spending in the next period, next 10 years to be precise. We've really looked at the cost of ownership of each of those different kinds of assets in your portfolio, understand the requirements and the needs for operation, maintenance, renewal, and so on, and then essentially sum those up over the period to establish our infrastructure need. And as you can see there, it's approximately $114 million. And one thing just to point out, obviously as we continue to build assets, that number will obviously continue to increase with respect to the new assets costing us money to continue to operate. And then finally, this is the reason that these plans are being regulated. Essentially, the Ontario regulation requires that we're financially sustainable, which means that we're achieving investment in our infrastructure to continue to maintain our level of service in a financially sustainable way, meaning that we're not imparting a liability onto our future generations. So trying to establish a sustainable input in terms of investing in our assets. So obviously, as you're well aware, I'm sure, the funding sources that we have at our disposal are the property taxes, development charges, grants, and some donations and so forth. Based on our sort of forecast of the average sustainable investment that we have given to us, we have $55.2 million at our disposal, and unfortunately we have a $114.5 million in need. So there's a little bit of an infrastructure gap there, which is honestly not unusual for municipalities, but we'll go through that in a second, which essentially has some impacts on the way that we may deliver services into the future. So basically the gap means that we have to think about ways of to become financially sustainable. We have a few levers that we could pull in order to adjust our spending. They may be around adjusting the levels of service, so we may choose not to widen roads, or we may choose to do some other activity. We may, it may also impact the risk level, so that may go up over time. It may also degrade our condition profile, so if you remember the coloured lines in the beginning there, they may tend to be more towards that red-orange scale over time if we're not able to maintain that need. And similarly, it may reduce our ability to continue to adjust and deliver community services into the future, which is obviously something that we want to all avoid. But there's obviously a lot of opportunities here for us to improve and to help close the gap, and the subject matter experts have identified a number of them. So we've got plenty of opportunities to improve our data quality. So obviously the data in terms of the modelling of that assessment is based on condition assessment, age, those sorts of things. The teams have highlighted a number of areas where they can improve that. Similarly, we've implemented some frameworks around standardizing the way that we report things and assess them, compare them. So there's opportunities there to help with that. Continue to manage our projects in alignment with our partners. So, for example, higher order municipalities or governments to help streamline the creation of those and get support where we can. The other ones could be calibration of levels of service, so talking to our community about what they really need versus what they're willing to pay. And again, look towards condition data and driving those decisions in a more condition-driven manner rather than relying on, say, age-based approaches. And finally, the asset lifecycle needs. So getting in some standard processes around understanding when we should be doing activities, why we should be doing them, and really streamlining that with considerations of finance and controlled growth. Finally, this is one piece of information, obviously, that you're probably all aware. The other one is to increase revenue. Unfortunately, there's obviously many challenges and requirements for your investment, but I think it's important to know that this is not a unique situation to Belleville, and there's some stats there that kind of speak to the challenges that municipalities have around funding their infrastructure. You're on the hook for the majority of the infrastructure, but receive a substantially smaller portion of the tax revenue associated with that. So I think there's obviously challenges there, but again, they're not unique to the city of Belleville. I'm going to stop there and take any questions that you might have, and I wanted to thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Edwards, for that. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, and I don't know whether Dan's did here or when it's in the agenda. There's a statement in here that the city's assets are generally in good condition, with over 77.8% of the city's assets in fair or better condition. I just want to get some feeling from these people that do these audits. Is that just about the average for municipalities our side, or are we on the better part of that?
I would say in general, yeah, you're on the upper side of that. Normally, good or fair is where most municipalities see. And similarly, there's an infrastructure report issued by the province that has benchmarks for certain asset types. and I'm going to pick on Joe. His roads are in far better condition than the majority of the assets in those reports. So I think that's a plus for you guys in terms of delivery of services to your community there.
So on these assets, that takes in roads, vehicles, and everything, and we rate in that.
That's exactly right. So that's expressing the good in that statement is expressing the portfolio as an averaged conglomerate.
It's encouraging to hear that our cities and our equipment's in that reasonably good shape, and it's good to go forward, even though we're not putting as much money in as we need to, but with our assets over almost 80%, that speaks well for us. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Edwards. Lot to digest here. Some of the figures are a little jarring, as you pointed out, and one that caught my eye, and you brought us around to the explanation. Given the estimated current needs of $114.5 million per year and only $55.2 million of forecast annual revenue, indicates a current infrastructure gap of 59.3, almost $60 million. And I take it then that the 6 options that you offered, along with 7, of course, petitioning senior levels for more money, the 6 options that you mentioned are recommendations or a roadmap forward in helping close that $60 million gap?
Correct. They're basically broken into what can the individual departments do. So you'll see in there's I think the improvement, monitoring and improvement, there's a section there. So each of the departments has some opportunities for advancing their asset management practices, which will in turn help guide you and give greater confidence to the data, but also to help you prioritize, make decisions, and so forth. And
Okay,
yes,
so it is a jarring figure, but there's a path through the darkness, if you will.
that's
Don't want
right.
to be too dramatic.
There's definitely opportunities, and I mean, as the regulation itself kind of stipulates, it's a continual improvement process. There's 4 or 5 options, deadlines, which obviously each time they're looking for you to grow into and have deeper expertise in asset management and the practice of it. So
Yeah, and the into page 26 of the report, of approximately $234.7 million worth of the city's assets, or 10.1% of the portfolio's value, are shown in poor or very poor physical condition. And again, a lot of that, I guess, is underground infrastructure. It's things, and we know the state of some of that. Again, the challenges of that 10.1% in poor or very poor means it's, about to fail in some respects. Again, the options or the pathway forward can help alleviate the funding that can help address that. Is that correct?
that's correct. So by way of example, you're spot on. The pipes are an area of maybe where the condition isn't as good as we'd like it to be. But through that, there's some opportunities for physical inspection of pipe and to confirm that maybe it is or it isn't in as good a condition as we projected in our modeling. So you may be able to defer a capital investment in that case, or maybe it is in as bad condition as we expected. And I guess the point there is more data, more investment in some of those condition assessment practices and so forth will give you that information and allow you to make those decisions with, I guess, more confidence.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, anyone else? Okay, well, we're referring this item to 8A for Mr. Edwards, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We've made a lot of progress since back in 2014, where basically we were just doing an inventory of our municipal assets, just going around with a clipboard and counting what we actually owned and didn't. Now we've started to analyze it and look at forecasting lifespan and what's required. And the very good news, I think, in my opinion, is that this year's capital budget exceeds what the 10% items are in total. So we do have a path forward, and it's good to have this data to back it up. So, colleagues, I'm looking for a resolution that the deputation by Glenn Edwards of GHD regarding the 2020 Comprehensive Citywide Asset Management Plan be received and referred to reports item 8A4. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Alsop. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move to correspondence, and we have in our packages the June 22nd, 2022 letter from Habitat for Humanity, Prince Edward Hastings, regarding the warming center. And the resolution is that the correspondence dated June 22nd, 2022 from Habitat for Humanity, Prince Edward Hastings be received, and that the Belleville City Council approve and authorize the use of the former Belleville Police Service facility at 93 Dundas Street East as the warming center for the 2022-23 season from December to March in partnership with Hastings County, and that Habitat for Humanity Prince Edward Hastings be indemnified against any damage claims as a result of this use for any reason, including personal injury, property damage, or loss or other claims. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Discussion. Councillor Thompson.
And I think it's great that we have this facility, and I realize that it's maybe only for 1 year, hopefully maybe for 2 if possible, but when we were there originally, there was a concern about washrooms. Are we, the city, going to do some renovations in that building to accommodate the people at night with washrooms that are right in the building? Do you know what the plans might
So
be?
the process that we followed was a couple meetings ago, I think, maybe a couple months ago. We determined that Hastings County would continue to operate a warming center for us this year.
Yep.
And if you recall, in the budget, we also made some additional funds
Yep.
that would pay our share to go to winter long, so not temperature activated any longer.
Yep.
That was the first step we had to do.
Yep.
We then put out a call for any community groups, businesses, private property owners that would be interested in providing a site.
Yes.
And my understanding is that no one came forward to provide a site. So we have to, by today, designate a location
Yep.
to Hastings County, who will then go in and do a full assessment,
Okay.
determine what steps have to be made. I believe they'll report to their committee. But they will operate it, and they will make repairs or upgrades to it. And Habitat for Humanity has given their consent. In the letter that they've written, they've also suggested that we would defer the actual transfer, because we've approved the transfer to Habitat for their project. But they're suggesting that we defer it until the spring, until after the season of the facility is there. If that occurs, then we don't need to indemnify them, because it would be our building, and Hastings County would have insurance. So I'm just giving you the full background on it, Councillor Thompson, because I think it's a good question about what happens with the physical repairs and upgrades. That's to be determined now, once we designate this as the site.
Okay, good. Then that's good. That's was important because it was concerned the last one. So thank you.
All right. Anyone else on this item? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. All right, before we move to Committee of the Whole, I just want to report on that at the last council meeting, Councillor Carr asked about the Committee of the Whole procedure and requested we return to the process utilized prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, where the Mayor of the Month would chair that portion of the meeting. And at that time, the CEO promised to review the issue, and I also spoke to the matter, requesting input from members of council, as I recognize we must respect everyone's individual comfort level. We have seen a number of relaxation steps taken as federal and provincial mandates are lifted as we return to many of our previous activities. And while many of us appreciate returning back to normal, it is a new normal as we continue to respect those who may not have the same level of comfort on issues such as mask wearing, social distancing, or choice of physical interaction. I note that other jurisdictions continue with virtual meetings, some continue with hybrid meetings, and some are back in person. The federal government has chosen to continue with hybrid meetings and reduced numbers of proximity until 2023. After my invitation last meeting, I've had discussions with several of you regarding the implications of adding 3 additional people around the horseshoe, the fact that we have a handful of meetings left this term, and that not all members of council will get a turn as per the Mayor of the Month schedule, as well as what may be involved in the actual chairing of the Committee of the Whole. I have also spoken with the CEO and the City Clerk during our last agenda-setting meeting on this matter and received their important perspective and guidance. Therefore, in the interest of fairness to all involved, I will continue to chair the Committee of the Whole portion of our regular council meetings, and we will not make any changes for the remainder of this term. I thank everyone for their input and their cooperation. And now I'll ask for a resolution that council rise and go into committee of the whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with myself in the chair. Moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. Item 8A, reports. Agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council. And 8A1 is dealing with the purchase of 3 2022 new half-ton extended cab pickup trucks. The resolution is that in accordance with Section 30.2, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, the quotation from Benton Fry Ford Limited be accepted for the purchase of 3 2022 new half-ton extended cab pickup trucks in the total amount of $166,492.91, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Can I get this on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. 8A2, operational review of Belleville Transit System. And the resolution is that in accordance with Section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, the quotation from HDR Inc. be accepted for the operational review of the City of Belleville Transit System in the total amount of $180,737.85, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the City of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Any questions or discussion on this item? Councillor Sandison. Committee, we're in the committee of the whole, Councillor Sandison.
Out of practice.
I know.
As we look at the Belleville Transit plan, and more importantly, this is the sort of the next step, or one of the next steps in the evolution of our transit system. I think it's worthwhile to sort of reflect back on where we were 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, we had our mobility service was outsourced. We hadn't purchased a new vehicle, a new bus in almost 10 years. We had some aging issues with our fleet that really needed some attention, and so we went about a process of purchasing 5 new buses, and that allowed us to take, I think it was 3 out of service, and we were able to utilize the other 2 buses by partnering with Quinte West to use, and Loyalist College, to sort of use Loyalist College as a hub and allow for transit between our 2 communities. We also insourced the mobility service to sort of give us more control. And again, when we did that, we recognized that we had some fleet issues. Some of the mileage on some of those vehicles was north of 200,000 clicks. So we've issued purchase orders for 3 new mobility buses. We partnered with Prince Edward County to be able to accommodate their expansion into Belleville, and we used the Pinnacle Terminal as a hub. And we also expanded service into the urban area of Ward 2. So there's been a tremendous amount of change that's occurred over the last 4 years. And we're now at the stage looking forward where we're looking at 2 things. We're looking at the zero-emission buses. And you've heard Manager Paul Buck and General Manager Joe Reed talk about the fact that we're partnering with 14 other municipalities through Metrolinx to be able to work on this collectively and develop some synergies and hopefully bring forward a proposal that we're going to be able to look at least from a financial perspective, and determine whether it's something that we want to pursue. That's going to come to the committee and or council probably in the January timeframe. And transit master plan that's before us today is something that we need to put in place for the overall city. We've got growth to the north, we've got growth to the east and west, and we really need a well-defined transit master plan to sort of guide us for the next 5 to 10 years. So before I ask General Manager Reed to say a few words about the project and what's involved in the project, excuse me, I think it's also important to note that that is expected to come to council in the March timeframe. And so, you know, in keeping with that sort of timeline, if you will, the Transit Operation Advisory Committee made a recommendation that we should extend Route 9 service to March 2023, using the available funds that were earmarked, and the operations team have sort of operationalized that, if you will. And so there's been a lot of change that's occurred, and I'd like to thank the members of the Transit Operations Advisory Committee, in particular the two council members, Councillor Millette and Councillor Carr. I'd like to thank General Manager Joe Reed and Transit Manager Paul Buck, as well as our friends in finance who have helped us pull this all together. So with that said, I'd like to ask General Manager Reed to tell us just a little bit of an overview on what's before us today. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to all of council, this recommendation to award the contract to HDR helps us build upon the successes we've had within transit in the last number of years. You know, through the pandemic, you know, the transit has been going strong and is starting to rebound after the pandemic, as you know, has been going on. You know, we support you know, the industry and the community and the economic benefit of everybody in the Loyalist College students. So as it evolves, we've noticed that, you know, they're starting to get pinch points in, you know, in relation to how our routes have been for a number of years. So we're hoping that this review and operational review will, you know, make recommendations how we can be most efficient while we continue to grow and continue to serve the community.
Great, thank you. Before I open up for questions, and I'm sorry I didn't let you know this question before, Mr. Reed, General Manager Reed. Prior to the pandemic, we were setting records for ridership with the system. I would say that we were bursting at the seams at that point, and we were starting to look at what we would be doing going forward. Do you recall what the number of passengers were in that time, December, January, February of 2020?
Yeah, we were definitely hitting more numbers. I know in the year of I think it would be 2018. So no, 2019 was the year before the pandemic, and I think we were like 1.1 million riders for the calendar year, which was the year before we had hit a million. So we had been continuing to grow with the international students and the recruitment that the college had been going through. We were having like 2 buses running steady from the terminal to Loyalist, and it was packed loads, like standing room only. So we were seeing the pinch points at that point, and you know, as we move out of the pandemic, we're seeing it grow again already.
Right, and I don't know if I cut you off, Councillor Sanderson, if you were finished or not. I should have checked first, but and that was that time when we had those record ridership numbers. That was prior to the linkage with the Quinte West system at Loyalist College, where we are now moving to a more regional system for the entire Quinte region, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Good, all right, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments on this? Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Manager Reed, I noticed this is the single source contract for HDR. Why are we, I understand the qualifications of HDR, but why do we have a single source contract?
Yeah, so through the provisions of our purchasing bylaw, there are exceptions within that we can, through the procurement of other agencies or businesses, so Metrolinx, we are a part of their procurement process. And just so happened that Manager Paul Buck is actually on the review team that actually reviewed this proposal from HDR on behalf of Metrolinx. We were one of the partners that actually reviewed it. So he has firsthand knowledge of what they're proposing, and we feel it's advantageous for us to move forward with them.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on this? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to speak generally to the operational review, but I just want to touch on just Route 9 for a second. There was a motion that was passed at the May Transit Advisory Committee meeting. I was not there, but the last meeting, General Manager Reid, the motion included a report to council. I was wondering if Mr. Reid could just advise council what he told the committee as it pertains to that motion.
Mr. Reid?
Yes. Through our discussions at the committee at the last meeting, which was last week, there was a motion at the May meeting to bring forward a council report regarding extending to March of 2023. I let the committee know that we had discussions at operating budget of 2022, that it was approved through that calendar year, and discussions could occur during the deliberations of them in approximately March of 2023 for the continuation of Route 9.
Okay, thank you. So getting to the operational review, we've just seen as we go through our asset management plan how the Parks Master Plan or Transportation Master Plan all dovetail together, and clearly transit requires a full review. There's been, and staff have done great work with the footprint that they have now, but we always hear that there's ways that we could optimize routes, make it more convenient. I certainly hear that in my ward is that transit isn't the #1 pick for transportation, and a lot of it has to do with the route configuration, the time to get to different places, and at the end of the day, for all intents and purposes, our community's not large in comparison to other urban centers, but getting people around quickly to make it convenient, so it's let's get on a bus versus grab a car. Certainly gas prices are driving in the direction where transit's going to be seen to be a first pick, if you will. But we have an opportunity, I think, here where a full review and the scope of work is very robust, which is excellent to see, including heavy community consultation, both with existing users, but I think it's important too, the potential users of what do you want to see in a transit service that would make you say, yeah, I'll take a bus versus hopping in my car. So I think this is an excellent project to undertake, and I think in the end we're going to end up with a good result that's going to provide the Transit Advisory Committee, but most importantly staff, with an idea of how we're going to make this work. And then to be able to dovetail it in with electrification and some of those other things that we're looking at is going to provide a very comprehensive overview. Electrification, is ideal as it is, listening to our financial statements for 2021, looking at our asset management plan and some gaps that we have there. I sat in on a virtual transit meeting for the province, and just listening to different stakeholders. And it was interesting to note that the federal government's put $2.7 billion aside over 5 years with regards to their zero emission transit fund. The TTC alone would cost $5 billion to convert to full electrification. So there's a lot more money that needs to go into that federal fund if places like the city of Belleville are going to see it. But if we don't take the time to do this review, the electrification review, we won't have all the information we need to then turn around and advocate to the seniors levels of government. But by having a very comprehensive review, we're going in with as much information as we conceivably have in order to be successful on future funding applications. So I think this is an excellent opportunity here for a good review. Thank you.
Good. Right, anyone else? Councillor Feeney.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very briefly, as someone who uses a public transit system almost daily, I really look forward to and support the operational review because it's so very, very important for all of the reasons that Mr. Carr, or Councillor Carr just said. And we need to support our transit and provide good routes and, affordable ways to get around. Thank you.
All right, anyone else on this? So before I call the vote, I just wanted to say a couple things, and I agree with the comments that have been made. This is not just a comprehensive review of our existing citywide transit system, but it is a top to bottom review, which will go through and find out, make recommendations. Are we as efficient as we can be? Are there recommendations to make routes more popular, to be able to make the system faster, to get people around quicker, to be able to have some more agility? Our transit stops in the right location, our routes having the right configuration. Do we need to partner more and create a regional system? It's very, very good, and it's really important. And I think it's, in fairness, it's being consistent with the direction that our council has taken this term when we have reviewed and redone so many of our plans, whether it be parks and recreation and outdoor spaces and other things. So this is the transportation master plan, but the transit one is really going to be important, and it's there. A lot has changed already this term, and we've talked about the expansion of some of our services with the regional link to Quinte West. There are discussions along the north shore of Lake Ontario between municipalities going as far as Port Hope, talking about a regional system that will also be able to help bring people on a daily basis from where GO train expansion is going to occur. So it is part of a bigger system, and it's a system which really supports our community, supports our economy, specifically by making sure that customers can go towards retail establishments, that employees can go to work, and that people can move around the city, particularly when the price of fuel is in the area of $2 a liter. So these are all really important. This information will be really, really helpful for the next council as they plan their budgets moving forward. And it'll be a testament for a lot of the work that we've done this term. So I support it, and I thank the Transit Operations Advisory Committee for the work they've done bringing this forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the results of that report will be. And so with that, I will call the question. All in favor? It's carried. 8A3, City of Belleville 2021 Consolidated Financial Statements. And the resolution is that City Council approve a transfer of $3,095,088.53 to various reserve funds from capital projects listed as Schedule A, and that City Council approve the transfer of $3,860,787.45 from various reserve funds to capital projects listed as Schedule A, and that City Council approve the City of Belleville's audited 2021 consolidated financial statements. Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Thank you. I wanted to get members of the committee on that. The items on the floor, anyone wants to discuss it? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, one quick question. And I sit on the audit committee, and I may have missed this one, but I'd like if Mr. Ferguson could answer it. On page 40, under consolidated expenditures by type, we got one item that's quite different from last year. Other at 3.688,871, and the year before that 618. I'd just like to, Mr. Ferguson can give you a brief description why there's a difference.
Yeah. Deputy Director.
Absolutely. Through the chair to Councillor Thompson. That variance this year is reflective of a one-time, likely a one-time issue. It's reflective of the DC fee waivers that would have came into play. When we implemented development charges, we had a phase-in period. So all fee waivers and phase-in costs were absorbed by the city. So those would be the impact reflected for that line.
So when we waived the development charges, was for specific projects or for just mass across the board?
Through the chair, Councillor Thompson. So when we implemented the DC background study, those would be the rates reflective of what the city should charge.
Yep.
At that point in time, we chose to phase them in and
Yep.
not charge the full rates. So it would be the difference between the rate that was paid and the full rate. The city absorbs the difference, and that would be reflective of the cost there.
So in turn, it helped for our development and everything else in our city, so helped the developers move ahead.
That's correct.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, if you recall, we chose not to proceed with the full increase to allow for more consultation, cooperation, and we did that. And those charges, the full impact was June 1st. They came online, so.
No, good, thank you. It was an alarming amount, or a large amount, and is a good story behind it, so that's a
Yes.
good thing.
Good, thank you. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I think Lori Hoover said it best when she said these were great results, and these results don't happen by themselves. And really, it started, I think, with the change in executive leadership for the corporation. And some of the executive management team that we've been fortunate enough to place. And the results, I think, speak volumes to the management rigor, if you will, and the robustness of our processes to be able to deliver these results while investing, sustaining, and expanding the services to our community. If you look at these financial numbers, and you can dice and slice them any way you like, they're actually outstanding. Debt's come down. Our capital budget was record-setting at $87 million. Our cash position is improved. And some people might say, well, if you're just increasing cash, then shouldn't you be spending that? But what we're doing with that cash that we're raising is that we're putting it in reserves. The management team also revised the debt management policy. So again, I think these results really position the corporation very well, not only for now, but for the foreseeable future. And asset management, we heard about. That's just going to be another tool to help us improve our financial performance. So, hats off to Director Carol Hines, Deputy Treasurer Brandon Ferguson, the entire executive management team, because this doesn't happen without collaboration. It doesn't happen with council agreeing to and identifying our priorities, and then the operational guys execute. And so well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. I won't repeat some of the comments, but I certainly would say that staff do the heavy lifting, even though council sits here and makes the decisions. And I look at the Deputy Treasurer's report, and I look at all these different grants that we've received from the Government of Canada, the Province of Ontario, and if it isn't for staff and their expertise and seeking out these funds, making the applications, and they are quite rigorous, and if they're not complete, they're easily declined. And so staff do a great job to put us in the best position possible to sit here and now talk about those successes. I do want to say, though, a thank you to Deputy Treasurer Ferguson for his report. That, in combination with the new consolidated financial statements from KPMG, provides a very good overview. When I see, like I said, refer to some of the government grants and where they went and the contribution to those projects. We all hear it from time to time, when we started receiving casino money. Well, where does the casino money go? And, or you've applied for this grant, where does it go? Or just generally speaking, you collect a lot of taxes, where does it go? Here's a prime example of where it is. And so, but the fact the report lays it out very clearly for a resident to go look to see where not only their tax dollars have made contribution, but that tax dollar has now been leveraged with provincial and federal grants, and that have turned around and done various projects throughout our city. And it tells a good story, and I know a lot of times when consolidated financial statements come up, you know, a lot of people glaze over, kind of like, oh yes, the auditors have looked at numbers and they've done all the calculations, but how it's broken down here very clearly in terms of the projects not only talks about the results that are being delivered, but the fact that they're being invested well in various projects throughout the city. And just as I see them, from roads to bridges to parks, the playgrounds, it's all there. And so it's a good snapshot to say this is where your money's being spent. So thank you.
Good. Anyone else? Well, before I call a vote, I have a couple comments, and I just also want to just talk about, like, these are outstanding financial results for a municipality, any municipality, certainly in the region that we can compare to. And not only are they outstanding financial results, but they are spectacular results considering we've come through a pandemic. Pandemic which has impacted our revenues, has impacted our expenses. We're now dealing with inflation or whatnot. And in spite of that, assets are up, liabilities are down, cash on hand is strong, and it's not like we haven't been spending money. We've been investing in future growth and items like that that are very, very important. And when you look at the strength of a municipality, and no one knows what the future is going to bring for us. No one knew 2 years ago what we would be going through with the COVID-19 pandemic. But this financial strength that's now shown in this report card of the city gives us the confidence to know that whatever occurs in the future, we are going to be able to get through it. And I echo the comments about thanks to Director Carol Hines and Deputy Director and Deputy Treasurer Brandon Ferguson and Kyle and the whole team down there. When you couple these results with the information we just heard a few minutes ago regarding the capital asset management plan, you know, that we only have 10% of our total assets, which are billions, and I say that with the plural, of dollars worth of assets that we have as a city, and only 10% of them are in that area. And the total value to correct those ones that are in poor or fair condition is less than we are spending in 2022 on the entire capital budget. That puts us in very, very good shape. And so as we look towards the future, it's very positive. We're going to do well. We're going to continue to be able to invest in services that residents want, expand them, provide better services, and be able to keep tax increases low as we've done this term. You know, again, I know everybody has heard this before on the table, but for members of the public, the 4-year average for the highest tax class in the city of Belleville is 1.39%, which is, when you consider with just inflation, by going to the gas station or the grocery store, is outstanding results considering what we've gone through. And I'm very, very proud of the financial performance of the city this term in particular. And with that, I will call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move now to the Comprehensive Citywide Asset Management Plan, and the resolution is that the Comprehensive Citywide Asset Management Plan be approved. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Millette. Any questions or discussion on this? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. And looking at this plan, and obviously there's legal requirements to have one, but certainly is very comprehensive in nature. I do like, also getting back to comments I made on the previous item, there's some great graphs in here that tells a good picture of where we're at. And you know, I think it's important on a go-forward basis that we make sure that we have these indicators prominent on our city website, so that residents understand this is where we are. The poor condition roads get a lot of attention and a lot of complaints, and rightfully so. And they're not certainly off our radar, but we also have a lot of investment that's been done in roads in particular, and we heard that from the consultant today, that our roads have come a long way. And it would have been interesting to see what some of those graphs would have been like 4 years ago, 5 years, 6 years ago, in comparison to where they are today. You know, the infrastructure gap that's there, we've known about it for some time. I think that there's been some concerted efforts to chip away, but this provides a little bit more of a game plan as to where things are at. It did kind of jump out on me too that when we talk about growth, and the comment was made from the deputation about controlled growth, and that's so important. There's a statement in the report that talks about increase in population is likely to result in faster deterioration of assets due to increased usage, increased need for additional assets or capacity, increased costs on the O&M side, and increased demand for active transportation. We see those all the time, and I know there's an appetite for growth, and you know, we have adjusted development charges to pay for that, but uncontrolled growth can have a detrimental effect on trying to maintain assets. And so not stymieing growth, not being gatekeepers to growth, that's not what I'm saying, but simply that it has to be done in a controlled manner so that costs aren't getting beyond what we're able to handle. The other thing that kind of shot out as I looked at it was reserve and debt ended up accounting for 23.4% of the revenue, and there was an adjustment where they would take that out. Relying on reserve and debt can be problematic over time. I know other municipalities that have really went to town and tried to knock down debt. I've said this before in this place, City of Windsor is a prime example, was up over $250 million in debt due to capital and continue to chip away at that debt, but at the same time building reserves. And they have a completely pay-as-you-go program, which obviously keeps costs down. I think that that's an ambitious goal that certainly is down the road. You know, I can say that the last couple of councils have probably had to spend a little bit beyond our means simply because of catch-up. And while the gap has closed a bit, the gap is still enormous. And so more effort needs to be done. But certainly this plan will send us in that right direction. And then finally, I just want to talk on the fact too that when they talk about asset maintenance and level of service, and there was reference there to work tech and when residents call, you know, and I think we really need to, and that's getting rolled out, but I think that really needs to be rolled out to 100% capacity, just simply because then it allows staff to have a real clear picture as to the condition of our assets on a more regular basis, because it's that in-time notice, if you will, about assets as they happen. You know, we have road patrol and different things. I know I'm picking on TOS here a bit, but they can't be everywhere. And so by having that ability for residents to report in, it's timed, it's there, it's tracked, not only from a customer service perspective, but also from the perspective of general managers and directors of departments know exactly where those assets are in terms of any major O&M. So I think this is a step in the right direction, and again, will high level but serve us well for the future. Thank you.
Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I won't repeat an awful lot of what's already been said. And just of note, while Mr. Edwards was at the mic, and I asked him about this $234.7 million worth of the city's assets, which represents 10% of the portfolio's value, shown to be in poor, very poor physical condition. Again, that's, as the mayor pointed out, I think that's, while it's never good to have, you know, over $230 million of your assets in a position that's about to fail, it's also in a very good comparable position to other municipalities, especially when one reads through the report and sees the fact that average age of an awful lot of our infrastructure, water pipes, for instance, well over 100 years. Stormwater pipes, again, well over 100 years. Average ages of roads approaching 45 to 50 years old on average. So, yeah, it doesn't really give, it's cold comfort to someone who lives on, say, Dufferin Avenue between Pine and Dundas when you're trying to get from A to B without having your shocks fall off your car. But on the plus side, it slows traffic. But we are addressing the, and you know, this report is a good roadmap, as we heard from Mr. Edwards, and it absolutely, we have crack staff in place. And when it's spelled out in this manner, and we see it's identified in this manner, and we know that, say, in our environmental services, that we are doing the testing and the monitoring to see where we're at the point of failure. Reports like this, while they are mandated by legislation, are absolutely critical to the efficient running of the city. So I applaud the thoroughness of this report, and look forward to seeing some better results coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. The asset management plan, I really like the acronym that they've come up with, AMP, and we need to ramp up the AMP. So I did have a conversation with Kyle. He's prime on this project, and there's a lot of great work that's been done. But the one message that I took away, and it's embedded in the report, is that this asset management plan needs to be done in conjunction with the long-term capital plan. Because the long-term capital plan is where we're going to make our investments in new infrastructure, new capital. And so those two activities have to be in sync in order for us to get the best result at the end. So I know they're working on it. I know that that's the game plan going forward. And I think this is a great position to be in heading into July. And then we'll just see how the plan unfolds from here. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'd just like to, I made the point earlier that 78% or 80% of our assets are in fair to better condition. And I personally would like to leave this meeting with saying, we have some assets that are in poor shape, but when we can consider we got 80% in our assets that are in good or better shape, I think that's the message we got to leave to the public, that we've looked after our assets very well. We know we got work to do. I certainly wouldn't want to walk away thinking that we have a bad situation with 10 or 12% in bad shape. So I just like to put a positive spin to that.
Yeah, so. No, absolutely. Anyone else? Well, there's lots of positive to take out of this, but I think none of us would suggest that we are happy with the state of some of our infrastructure in the city. And so, percentage-wise, it may not be a lot, but Deputy Director Ford is here, and he will tell you that some of that asset replacement, the delay on it, is not our fault. We are waiting for provincial approvals, whether it be environmental compliance approval or other steps that we have to go through the process. For example, just off the top of my head, there are the next project on the agenda, we're finally able to go ahead with it as we deal with Albion Street, and that's because we were waiting for approvals. Mr. Ford gave me a list of 7 projects to speak with the Minister of the Environment about, and I spoke about this with him about a month and a half ago, where I said, we have included this in our budget. We have taxed it. We have the funds. We want to issue the contract, but we're waiting for the province to give us approval. And so we got on a couple, but let's go over a couple ones that are, Councillors Carr and Sanderson will be very interested. Farnham Road, fully funded, ready to go. We're just waiting for the ECA on that, and it's there. The one that I'm also very concerned about is Rollins Drive by Harry J. Clark School. We want to do that road. That school is bursting at the seams. It's very busy buses. Every time it rains, there are lakes on that road. It needs to be done. We're waiting for ECA approval on it. I spoke to the minister about it, and I explained to them, we only have the months of July and August to do this work, because come September, all the kids will be back. So, we're trying to get them to move forward. So, we have to have a predictable, forward-looking, project list that we deal with. We're not happy with the state of some of our roads, and we are doing what we can about it, but when you consider the whole of the municipality, we're in very, very good shape. Imagine the conversation that's occurring around council tables in other parts of the province. Imagine if you are a city councillor with the City of Toronto. They have significantly more than 10% of their assets that are designed as poor or weak or in need of immediate replacement. And I think they're quite envious of municipalities like us who have worked hard to put ourselves in this position. So, you know, the last thing I just want to mention, and I think Councillor Carr talked about, you know, growth and how municipalities invest in growth has a lot to do with how they're able to maintain their assets. And as I look at the pattern of growth for our council this term, we have not gone in one single area of the city and focused on it, which puts huge financial burden through that. We have covered off different areas of the city in a controlled manner so that we can spread the need, and that those services, as they come on stream, can not just improve existing residents, but also be there for those in the future. So, you know, again, financial statements are fantastic. Capital asset management plan is very strong and promising, and we're doing the work that is necessary. So thanks, hats off to all of our staff for the great work that they've done and they continue to do. So with that, I will ask for a motion to approve the report, the plan. All in favor? It's carried. Now let's move to Albion Street and Albion Way Road reconstruction, 8A5 on the agenda. And the resolution is that the tender submission from Cooney Excavating Limited be accepted for contract ENG 2022-06 Albion Street and Albion Way Road reconstruction in the total dollar amount of $4,051,954.59, this being the lowest cost tender received, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that the 2022 capital budget be amended to include $400,000 of additional funding for Albion Street and Albion Way Road reconstruction to be funded from the Canada Community Building Fund Reserve. Moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Any questions or discussion on this? Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I think if anybody remembers, a lot of this was made possible by the redirection of funds from our friends on Alexander who like their street the way it is. One quick question, however, once all this work is done, and it is badly needed because of the state of both Albion and Albion Way, and the bringing online or the occupancy of very many and again much needed apartment buildings at the foot of this road. My question, I guess, through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Reid is, will there be any intersection improvements at either end at Pine and or Station Street as part of this project?
Deputy Director Ford, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Councillor Millette. We will be doing some improvements at the Pine Street intersection. We're going to look at moving, there's a pole that's a little bit close, we're going to look at moving that, but we will definitely be making some improvements there. The Station Street intersection will stay pretty much the same as what you see today. We're going to realign the sidewalk crossing there and make it a little bit better, but it's functioning rather well, so we don't see the need to make any major changes at that location.
Okay, anyone else on this? Good. And this was one of those projects that, speaking to the minister, got it fast-tracked. So Deputy Director Ford has turned this around quickly. We're grateful and we're happy that this work will start very soon. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. 8A6, Parks 2022-14, Parks and Public Spaces Dedicated Art Structures, and the resolution is that the request for tender submission from Jeffrey G. Wallens Construction Limited be accepted for contract number Parks 2022-14, Parks and Public Spaces Dedicated Art Structures in the total amount of $135,456.81, this being the lowest cost tender received, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll now move to consent items, where council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. So I'll go around the table. Councillor McCaw.
No, thank you.
Councillor Sandison.
No, thank you.
Councillor Alsop.
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
No, thank you.
Councillor Feeney.
No, thank you.
Councillor Millette.
No, thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
All right. So then the resolution is that the consent items be approved. Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll go to 8C, which is, I'm sorry. Just a piece of information, colleagues. 8B4, which was the parade permit application from Three Oaks Foundation, was withdrawn. They are going to be rescheduling that for later in the summer or the early fall. So just an FYI, I know that it's in the agenda package for you and for members of the public watching. It was for June 27th. It will not be going ahead on June 27th. It'll be later in the fall or in the late summer. 8C, council information matters. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to, there are none. So I don't have a resolution, right? So I don't have to get ahead of myself. There you go. So 8C is, there are no items unless someone wants to, no, there are none. So then we just move to a motion to rise and report. Moved by Councillor Alsap, second by Councillor Millette. All in favor, it's carried. And we'll deal with the 4 bylaws we have, and I'll read them. First reading of bylaws 2022-95, 96, 97, and 98. Moved by Councillor Sandison, second by Councillor Alsop. All in favor, it's carried. Second reading of bylaws 2022-95, 96, 97, and 98. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any questions or discussion on them? Seeing none, I'll call it all in favor. It's carried. And third and final reading of bylaws 2022-95, 96, 97, and 98. All moved by Councillor Alsap and Councillor Millette. All in favor, it's carried. Any new business today? Councillor McCaw. Don't forget to turn your microphone on, please.
So I'm back again today, doing my favorite pastime, removing these signs. And I just want to remind homeowners that if you see these signs and want to remove them and don't want to dispose of them, give me a call. I'm happy to pick them up. They, this group seems to want to prey on homeowners. They do contribute to our housing crisis. They cannibalize our housing stock. I've been urging residents to actually text or call this number and let them know you don't want to see their garbage on your corner anymore. Maybe if they hear from us as residents and councillors that we're tired of picking these up, maybe they'll stop. Maybe they won't, but it's worth a try. I've urged many people to do it. People have done it. I continue to urge people to do that. I want to remind residents that these people really aren't acting in the best interests of you as a homeowner, and I think it's time that we took a stand against this predatory behavior. So again, I welcome anyone. If you pick these up and you don't want to dispose of them, give me a call. I'll come by. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, there are Councillor Sandison. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the question I was going to have for Mr. Ford, you sort of touched on, and that was Farnham Road. We're waiting for ECA?
Environmental compliance approval.
Okay. So, this is a project that Councillor Carr put on the floor to have the entire project put together and funded $10 million, and we put that in the budget. And, we've received criticism from other levels of government that we're the ones holding things up in terms of growth and infrastructure improvement. And here we have, I don't know how many, this thing's got to be coming up on its first birthday soon in terms of the need. So I wonder if Mr. Ford can just maybe elaborate in terms of what discussions are occurring. When are we expecting to see this ECA? And I know that they are ready to go to RFP as soon as we get it. So, thank you.
Deputy Director Ford, do you want to take a shot at that?
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Sandison. We expect that we will be issuing the approval for that ourselves. One of the things that the Ministry, and we're talking about the Ministry of the Environment, who issues these environmental compliance approvals, and one of the things that the Ministry is doing to help remove these bottlenecks and to speed up approval processes is to go through a process to transfer that approval authority to the municipalities. So we've, thanks to the Mayor's efforts in reaching out to the Minister of the Environment, The ministry has, I'll say, fast-tracked our approval process, or this process. And I know our Environmental Services Department are actively working with the Ministry of the Environment to go through this process that will allow us to self-approve these type of projects. I know that this does take some time. There is a multitude of paperwork and information that has to be exchanged and accepted by the ministry. I know these discussions are ongoing. I was talking to Environmental Services just last week as we gather some more information to provide to the ministry. I don't know when the process will be completed. I suspect it's probably another 4 to 6 weeks away by the time we get through all this paperwork, at which point we'll then be in a position to self-approve our own sewer projects and designs such as Farnham Road. So I'm anticipating it's probably not going to be until September or October where we'll be in a position to go to tender with this project. We're going to review those timelines as they evolve and as we move forward. But it's a little bit of short-term pain in terms of trying to get this new process in place that will free us up and provide some more certainty to us as to when we will be able to proceed to construction on these projects. So just for example, right now the ministry is, if we have to continue to go to the ministry for approvals, it could take up to 12 months to receive an approval from the ministry. Once we get the process in-house ourselves, we will be able to put in place much stricter and tighter timelines, so we will be able to have these approvals within a month to 2 months and be able to go to construction on a more predictable approach. So unfortunately, I don't have an exact timeline because we're working our way through the ministry and trying to get these details in place that will allow us to move not just Farnham Road, but Rollins and Shelford Crescent. We have a couple pumping stations that are sitting there waiting for approval as well. There's some critical infrastructure that we really need to address. And we're working our way through this process right now. So I know it's not giving you a great answer, but it's what we're doing right now to try to speed things up.
Okay, that's helpful for sure. Thank you.
Well, and if I can just add a little more color to that conversation, when Mr. Ford asked me to speak to Minister Piccini back in April, it was about the middle of April, and I spoke to him. I apologized to him. I said, Minister, I'm sorry to have to be calling you, but unfortunately, because your department has not approved our application for this linear devolution of this permission granting, I need you to help me with these projects. And then we went through the projects. He was able to fast track a couple of them to get them to us, but he committed that they would be moving quickly. So, we, in anticipation of receiving that approval, Mr. Ford's department has transferred a member of their engineering staff to another department so that we can do proper peer reviews of the project, so that we can fast track it, expedite the process. So as soon as we're able to get that permission to approve these projects ourselves, which some other municipalities have, then we can immediately go to RFP, get the project out, try to get pricing on it. Now, I would also remind everybody, and I know that we're very anxious for Farnham Road because it is a road that it desperately needs attention, but when we added it to the budget, the earliest suggested timeline was late fall 2022 that it would be able to start. So I think we've sped it up a little bit. It may not be quite that late, and we're hoping, but we're actually running a little bit ahead of schedule based on that, and we're optimistic that because Minister Piccini did not change portfolios, he's still the Minister of the Environment. It's not far for us to pick up to deal with that. Okay, Councillor Carr.
Thank you, and thanks for that important question, Councillor Sanderson. Just to follow up, and I'll just ask generally speaking, so I know we applied for certificates of approval, so we started the process where the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks was the approval authority, and now we're switching where we're transitioning where we'll have authority in-house. Did we lose any ground by starting one process and then transitioning to the other?
Yeah, I'm shaking my head no, because the minister's expectation is that we will not receive approvals from the ministry. We will receive the devolution of that power and then delegation of that power, and then we can approve them as soon as they're ready.
Okay. The only thing that I'm thinking of is I hear some of the approvals and awardings is September into October. I don't know if this council hits lame duck status and then when that may be, but that could be an issue too as we get into September and October for some of these larger projects. So just concerned about that timing as well. But
Because these projects are already approved and they're in the budget, we will have a delegation of authority to the CAO when we hit lame duck status. So as long as they don't exceed the budgeted amounts, the CAO is able to do that. But I'm not. That's the least of our worries, I think. You know,
I'm just looking at every single hurdle because I know there's a few that
Yeah.
we just want to see get going.
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you.
we need to get this approval, this power from the province to be able to deal with this. We will fast track ourselves. There is a huge backlog at the Ministry of the Environment for these from all municipalities that do it, and the sooner that we can disentangle ourselves from that process, the better. Anything you want to add, Director McDonald?
Through the chair, just to all of council. So the term lame duck. So restricted acts comes in. The first calculation is a closed nomination, so August 19th. We'll do a calculation as to what the restricted acts provision comes in. So yes, removal of officers of the corporation, unbudgeted expenses exceeding $50,000, and disposition of real property of the corporation. Those are the three prescribed in the legislation. And then we do another calculation after election day. So two important dates, August 19th and October 24th. Neither of those dates cause any real issue if we don't tip the scale to those numbers. That being said, it's still those unbudgeted expenditures. You'll see on the next council agenda, it's been in my calendar for 4 years. It's every 4 years. There will be a delegation of authority to the CAO, very much like in 2018, prior to 2018 election. So for those expenditures that are in the budget, even in the event that we tip that scale on either of those key dates, anything pre-approved by council is still able to proceed.
Okay. Anyone else on that or anything else? Okay. There are no motions today, so notice of motions. Anyone have any notice of motions? Then we'll move to announcements. Colleagues, announcements. So I see lots, so let's start off with Councillor Thompson. We'll work our way back this way and then around the table.
Thank you. Just a quick one. I want to congratulate whoever had any events downtown organizing it. I know they'll speak later to it, but as a person that works in retail, it brought lots of people downtown. That's really what we want for the merchants downtown, is new people downtown browsing, looking around. I can't say that we did any extra business, but we certainly had extra people into the store. And that's really what it's about. It brings people down. I was out for Friday night and Saturday. Great time, and I know the organizers will speak about it, but it was lively, and I seen the mayor and Councillor Millette was down there having his jerky chicken and wanted me to have some, but but anyways, it was a great event. Thank you.
That's right, okay. Councillor Alsop, I think you might be able to add on that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we had a very fun and successful weekend downtown with both Downtown at Dusk and, of course, the first Caribbean Festival, which I'm sure Councillor Kelly will be speaking to in a moment. But there were thousands of people down there both days. It was a fantastic series of events. As Councillor Thompson alluded to, drove a lot of traffic into the businesses. And so as the council rep on the BIA, I just want to thank some of the people involved with creating the event and all the hard work that goes into them. Of course, the BIA staff and summer students, Louisa Sorrentino, Kelsey Moniz, Sarah Bering, and Amelia Tyndale. Big thank you to our board of directors and new board chair Stacy Kerr, as well as the previous board chair and the board who launched this event for the first time pre-COVID. As we continue to build on the event, it continues to be successful. We look forward to many more Downtown at Dusk events in the future. All of the performers that were downtown, the food vendors and restaurants, the street market vendors, and of course Sarah Brown Dunkley, who did the opening evening address with Indigenous storytelling. It was a really well-rounded, multifaceted event, And I think it had something for everyone. We saw families, we saw older people, we saw young couples. Just a great event downtown, bringing people into the core. And a special thank you, of course, to all the BIA members for all their hard work and for working together to make the downtown what it is today.
Absolutely. Good. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two items. One, after a 2-year hiatus, the Holyrood Country Jamboree is back at 910 Harmony Road from July the 7th to the 10th. They've got a star-studded lineup, and information and tickets, etc., are available at holyroodjamboree.com. Second item, a number of us, in fact almost the majority of council, including the mayor, we were treated to a tour through the Humane Society Hastings Prince Edward, and that was last Tuesday. So the entire team was there from the Humane Society. We had Greg Suds, we had Marilyn Laurie, Donna Endicott. I'm sure I'm leaving off some people. They toured us through the facility. It is top drawer, and you know, it's almost heartbreaking when I think back to my visits to the old building, and when you go through that building, it's like, this is how it should be. And I did mention to Donna that when I saw the building, before I even went in the building, I thought to myself, this is what happens when dreams come true. And I know that Councillor Pat Cohane would just be over the top in terms of what's happened there. So anyways, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sandison. Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. And just in follow-up to Councillor Sandison, you know, as a long-term board member for the Quinte Humane Society, it is a thrill to see this come true. And if not for this council and the support of each and every one of you, along with also members of Quinte West Council for their support, this may have never happened. So I just can't tell you enough how grateful I am as a board member, and how grateful I know Pat Culhane would have been. This is something that was so important to her, and she may not be here to see it, but I'm sure if she were, she'd be very proud. So moving on, I also just wanted to take a moment and an opportunity to express my thanks to the many city workers and volunteers, staff who took the time out during the recent storm to help with the cleanup, and I guess they're continuing to help with the cleanup of the storm. And I must say that in my many years, and I'm not going to tell you how many years that is, I've never ever witnessed a storm like that in Belleville. So, you know, it was quite an amazing storm, and a lot of people suffered through it without, you know, utilities and hydro and all sorts of things, but without the assistance of volunteers and city staff. You know, again, I thank you very much on behalf of everyone that I've talked to for your support and help during this time. Thank you.
And Councillor McCaw, I'm not sure if you know this, but Manager Reid told me that there were already 2,900 hours of employee work that is just on cleaning up or restoring after that storm, and so I agree. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. A few things tonight to speak to. First of all, last week I got a few emails and a couple phone calls from some concerned residents regarding their health care. And just to update everybody, I've done some legwork over the last several days. The Belleville Nurse Practitioner's Office sent emails to their clients, if you will, or their patients, that a pilot project was ending on June 30th in the province. So I made some inquiries on what do those numbers look like over the last 6 months after speaking to a few residents that are going to be without health care, or at least somebody to go to, without going to a clinic. And I believe in the 6-month pilot project, the numbers that I retained were 1,300 patients were helped over the last 6 months. And the Nurse Practitioner's Office had a partnership with BGH. Anyone that was in for day surgery or was in for a situation at the hospital that didn't have a doctor to go to, the clinic took them in, if you will, and helped them through post-surgery, and working with them, and I believe those numbers were around 700. So the nurse practitioner's office in Belleville deals with about 2,900 patients on their list. And with the pilot project ending on the 30th, there will be job losses at the clinic. And we don't want to see professionals lose their job, particularly in any position, but in the healthcare position. So I reached out to Minister Todd Smith just prior to Mr. Smith being sworn in on Friday, and he said he would get back to me on the weekend, which he did. And he's looking into it. He will be having a conversation with the new Minister of Health. And Mr. Smith mentioned that maybe in the election mode that we had here in the month of June, some paperwork maybe didn't get it looked at properly. So Mr. Smith has assured me that he's looking into that. And for the residents that of the city of Belleville that received, and it's also Tweed affected by this as well, that received that letter from the nurse practitioner's office that the pilot project is ending on June 30th. Let's hope good news is ahead of us. This past Thursday, I had a chance to represent the mayor. I was at the Loyola graduation, and it was held at Westwick Park at Tom Gaby's Pavilion. And Loyola English Second Language Program, great story. 80 graduates from 22 nations. I think sometimes we all forget what Belleville looks like now in 2022. So 80 graduates, English as a second language from all around the world. 22 nations represented this past Thursday. And so congratulations to all the students. Good luck in your next journey. And Aaron Walker, the principal at Loyola, and David DeSantis, the director of the Algonquin Lakeshore Catholic School Board, had high praises for the city, the way we work together with that educational institution. So congratulations to the grads. I do want, and Councillor Alsop did touch on the Downtown at Dusk. That was a wonderful celebration. And this weekend was a multicultural weekend in Canada. And we kicked it off with ethnic food, and it was just a beautiful celebration on Friday. And then congratulations to Louisa Sorrentino and her team. What a way to kick off the first weekend of summer. And then on Saturday, the city rolled into its first Caribbean Festival, and I've been involved since the get-go, and I appreciate the support from the mayor right off the top. We started this thought process and how June 25th would look like with Karen Post, Alicia Purchase, Kimberly O'Brien-Mumby, and Tiffany Spencer joined the team later, but it was just awesome to work with those city employees. It's energizing, they're focused, they're fun, and they were in it from the get-go until 8 o'clock on Saturday night. I wanted to talk about that too. So we put this festival together, the city and our partners from Bay Community Regional Marketing Board, our business community support this project. And this was our first kick at the can. And over the past couple of weeks, as the chair of this event, I was just sitting in the weeds and watching because, again, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, it's a Caribbean Communities Carnival presentation. So Karen Clayton-Babb and Mark Phillips were the spokespersons for the festival. In the past couple of weeks, this is what the city of Belleville received. Media, CTV News out of Ottawa were in town. And I believe it was aired 3 or 4 times in their newscasts. I'm not too sure if it made the national channel, but it could have. And it's there for eternity. Always there. Global News from Toronto were in town on Saturday. CKWS Global News out of Kingston has done several stories on it. Last Friday morning, Mark Phillips was on CBC Ontario Morning. Wonderful article by Derek Baldwin in the Belleville Intelligencer with Karen Clayton-Babb last week. Local radio done by 95.5 Hits FM. Cool FM, Mix 97, Rock 107, CJBQ, and even Loyalist College. They were there on Saturday broadcasting live. They got the invite. What does this mean to the city of Belleville? I'm telling you here right now, having some experience from the media, we couldn't afford it. We talk about the billions of dollars that we have in the tank for if something happens. That process right there in the last couple of weeks, over 1 million people have heard and witnessed what we're doing in Belleville. And it does matter. It really does. The Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee it does matter. And other communities have reached out to me, other cities in Ontario. How did you guys put this together? They're taking notice because they're seeing it and they're reading it and it's authentic. So it was a very successful process. Just a thank you to Sonia, Kat, Doug, Josh, Karen, Mark, Teffrey, Joan, Tiana, Louisa, and Tiffany for being there from the get-go, and all the support from the city staff. They were wonderful to deal with. Working overnight, moving stuff, dealing maybe with impatience of others, trying to get things done, the heat. It was wonderful. And thank you to all the sponsors. It really makes a difference when we have that buy-in and partnership with our community. 32 islands were represented this past weekend. And I just wanted to kind of do a couple of personal things. It tugs at your hearts when two of the performers that played, and I know I'm going a little long, Mayor, but I do want to get this in because it's that important. Premor and Shamar and Curious and Jeff Pickney were the local artists. And they were amazing. They bought in right from the get-go. I met Premor at the grocery store in the soup aisle, and we built a relationship, and I found out he was a singer. And I met Shamar at a furniture store. He's in his early 20s. And those two lads told me on Saturday, they never expected to play or sing at a Caribbean festival in Belleville. And this was that handshake saying, come, you live here, we want your talents. This is beautiful and Curious. And is it Jaw Pickney? They were excellent. It's just, and this is what we're building on. And so many comments. And then from the commerce side of things, I received numerous messages from downtown business owners, and the response was, best day in 3 years. Thank you to Belleville for having this. We had a great year, or a great weekend with both festivals. So that is encouraging because we all know downtown, it has been difficult. Walk a day in their shoes. We haven't. We can empathize with them, but it was beautiful this weekend. And the people that I've had a chance to meet over the last 5 months, I really feel that I'm blessed. It's been such an experience and a learning experience for me personally. And the final thing, I reached out to Kevin from Caribbean Kitchen in Belleville, and he was a little hesitant. Even on Wednesday and Thursday last week, a little hesitant because he didn't know if this was going to be, if he could do it. Was this going to come off? I said, just do it, trust me. Well, he got his chicken ready, his jerk chicken that Councillor Millette had a chance to try. And he sold over 300 pounds of chicken in about 3.5 hours, and he was out of chicken by late afternoon. I don't know, Mayor, you would know better. Is 300 pounds of chicken in 3 hours good? I would suggest it probably is. But he sent me a text after the show and the event on Saturday, and he said, thank you so much, and thanks for including our community in Belleville, and let me know when the next event's on, I'm there. That's it. So thanks to everybody that helped out.
Yeah, look forward to next year's. Excellent work. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just quickly on the downtown activities, I had occasion, as Councillor Thompson mentioned, when I got my jerky chicken and I was downtown. I actually brought him some, but he was too busy selling suits to have a taste of jerk, so. But in my travel Saturday downtown, I did manage to speak to a few people that I know who live downtown but work outside downtown. And I wanted to, and I've sent this message to Mr. Reed to pass on to staff. It's not often you hear high praise for our operations, our transportation operations people. Or maybe we do, it's just not like in general praise. The people who live downtown and had to, imagine, this is basically your backyard. Friday night you've got a major event downtown. All through the night you have a transition, which again our operations people were getting ready for. Saturday, then it transforms into thousands of people downtown. The praise that came from people were such that they were amazed at how well our staff facilitated their needs in getting in and out of downtown. And because, again, that's their home. That's the kind of thing I think we need to highlight, because as we bring more people downtown, as we get more housing downtown, these are the kinds of things that we're going to have to hear about and we're going to have to know about, because if we want to be a vibrant downtown, we've got to facilitate people who live there and work outside downtown. So just hats off to Joe and his staff. I just want to say thank you. It was a while back since we last met, June 18, the Green Task Force Pollinator event. I want to thank fellow councillors and committee member Bill Sanderson, and I want to thank Councillor Feeney, who dressed as a bumblebee for the day. It was a great event. We had dozens of folks out on Market Square taking in the speakers and taking advantage of the plant giveaways. Quinte Conservation took part. The David Suzuki Butterfly Foundation was handing out information and native plants. Carson Arthur could have spoken for an hour and a half. He was that engaging and had that much great information. Quinte Field Naturalists were there. Pollinator partnerships from Quinte Field Naturalists, and yeah, it was just an all-around great day. It highlights the importance of pollinators in our community and the work that we as the Green Task Force are continuing to do with our staff in making Belleville truly a bee city, which we are officially, but we have to look after those pollinators. And just one thing I think you can look forward to going forward, we're going to advocate on, we're going to try and codify better rules and regulations for people who want to naturalize some portions of their property. Because right now we're running into people who want to do it the right way. They want to, say, turn their front yard not from a monoculture of green grass, which is fine for, you know, whomever wants to have that, to a more naturalized area that's a little more pollinator friendly. However, there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. You just don't let it go to seed and weed, because that you end up with invasive species. But we're working on ways, and we'll be bringing more information to council at a future date as to how and why we might make those changes to the property standards bylaw. But all in all, things are looking good, things are looking green, and the pollinator event was a very, very popular event. We got great feedback on it. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much, and a very busy spring for the Green Task Force with the seedling giveaway and the pollinator event and all the other work. Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, I have a proclamation, and I know that people are anxious for the major announcement I am so excited to be able to make this afternoon. First, I would like to proclaim July 5th as National Injury Prevention Day. July 5th, 2022 will mark Parachute's 6th Annual National Injury Prevention Day. So it's not just for people that parachute. It's a company called Parachute. They're putting on the day, although you'll understand in a moment. Day to raise awareness around the importance of injury prevention and to help Canadians live long lives to the fullest through education and advocacy. Parachute is Canada's national charity dedicated to reducing the devastating impact of preventable injuries. Did you know that unintentional injury is the #1 killer of Canadians between the ages of 1 and 34, and it costs the Canadian economy $29.4 billion a year. So July 5th is National Injury Prevention Day. So I am so very, very pleased to be able to make a major announcement regarding professional sport and the city of Belleville. The Belleville Senators are the only National Hockey League or American Hockey League team in Ontario that does not play in their own building, meaning they don't own their own building. And as such, they lease the CAA Arena from the city of Belleville. And when the COVID-19 pandemic struck in 2020, the city of Belleville provided rent relief to all of our tenants, including the Belleville Senators. And in exchange for this rent relief assistance, we extended the lease and loan agreements with the Belleville Senators, which are now in place until 2027, and the initial renewal option for a further 5-year term remains in place. When we announced the first instance of relief, Belleville Senators owner Eugene Melnyk expressed his gratitude to Belleville City Council and the City of Belleville for this assistance, and he said that he would not forget it. Unfortunately, Mr. Melnyk passed away earlier this year, but what he said about his gratitude lives on. I am pleased to announce that the Belleville Senators and the CAA Arena will host an NHL preseason game featuring the Ottawa Senators on Friday, September the 30th. In the coming days, the Belleville Senators will announce how season ticket holders will acquire tickets to this game. This is a big deal for the city of Belleville, and we are going to be very excited about this game. It's a tremendous opportunity to bring positive recognition to our city and the Quinte region. But wait, I haven't said who the opponent will be. I'm so very excited that this will be a full Battle of Ontario matchup featuring the Toronto Maple Leafs. And this game will be a first on so many levels for the city of Belleville. But I want to stress again that this game was a personal decision made by Eugene Melnyk before he passed away, because he was so very much touched by the support that he and the Belleville Senators had received from the city of Belleville. And as a further thank you, ticket prices will not be priced at the NHL level for this game, even though there will only be about 4,500 spectators in attendance. And as I mentioned earlier, more information will be released after the Ottawa Senators release their entire 2022-23 schedule on Wednesday this week. The one thing that I know for sure, only Belleville Senators season ticket holders are guaranteed to have tickets to this game. So I encourage anyone interested to get their tickets for this coming season quickly. This game will be important as it is at the end of the preseason schedule, and both teams will want to be ready to get off to a great start. There will be a lot of outside attention on our city as the eyes of the province of Ontario and Canada will again be on our city for such a positive event. Thank you to the Belleville Senators, the Ottawa Senators, and especially Mr. Eugene Melnyk for this great event to add to our exciting recovery. And with that, I will ask for a confirmatory bylaw. Resolution is that bylaw number 2022-99, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on June 27, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 27th day of June 2022. Moved by Councillor Alsap, second by Councillor Feeney. All in favor? Before I adjourn, I want to wish everybody, all of you colleagues, and all the residents of Belleville a very happy Canada Day on Friday. It's finally we're able to celebrate again in a big, big way. Lots of information is available about our Canada Day activities. The city communication staff will be pressing it out. But happy Canada Day to all of us. We really do live in the greatest country in the world. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor McCaw, second by Councillor Sandison. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.